Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, back to Nearpod. Right, key terms, key ideas, things that would be very useful going into your glossary: market failure, public goods, merit, demerit goods, externalities, common pool resources, tragedy of the commons, indirect or Pigouvian taxes, tradable permits, asymmetric information, otherwise known as adverse selection, moral hazard, and of course market power. Now the market power one is going to spill over into part 2. In fact, most of part 2 is all about market power. Alright. Okay. Ding. Specific things that you need to be able to know and need to be able to do. So the specific learning outcomes. So things about what is market failure, how does it actually work, why is it important, what is the impact on resource allocation and efficiency, our major theme. You're going to be able to need to use concepts about MPC, MSB, and MSC. We'll explain those. To describe market failure, we're going to be talking about externalities, the failure of the market to achieve social optimums, and we're going to talk about policies and analysing different policies that can be used in order to fix those, and then evaluating those, whether they are the right thing or not to do. Right, so very first we need to just remind ourselves, this is why I sent you that little wee link there, little wee comment about remembering efficiency. Efficiency is one of our major themes. Alright, so we need to make sure that we are constantly aware of the idea of efficiency. Now, the point being is that we build this market model up, it's beautiful, it does all these amazing things, it self-corrects unless we intervene, alright? And because it does all of that, we create this idea of efficiency and that the market is efficient, and that's what we say. Right? But it is entirely possible that we can have a market situation where not all costs and all benefits are taken into account. That our market model doesn't account for certain costs that might occur. So certain costs then are external to the market, other benefits that might be external to the market. And so because they're not taken into account, then we're going to say that our market isn't as efficient as we thought it was. And maybe it's actually, as a model, maybe the entire model has actually failed. Alright? Okay. And we're going to see how that works. Very first thing, close gaps. Away you go. Shouldn't take you long, that one. Give you a couple of seconds. All right, so have a go. Close the gaps. Well done. It's looking very good. All right, Arena, you had a go. Still getting them in. I know it's not always easy. Some computers, and if you're doing it on a phone, it's even harder. So hopefully you're not doing that. All right, well done. All right, so things I'm looking for. Markets are very efficient in deciding what goods to produce and how much to produce, but it is quite feasible that not all costs and all benefits are taken into account, or that imperfect competition puts the market price higher than the marginal cost. We're going to discuss the terms that are in there, but essentially what we're saying is that sometimes the market doesn't work, even if we're not intervening, sometimes the market won't actually work. All right. A little bit of a note about efficiency. Efficiency is about using the best or the optimal use of our scarce resources. That's what we need the market model to do. That's what we need the market model to do. Economic efficiency occurs when society is using it to produce the best possible amount of goods and services that consumers most want, therefore allocative efficiency and productive efficiency. So remembering those as concepts that are tied to the idea of efficiency. We also talked this idea about Pareto efficiency, where it's possible that we're not able to reallocate resources to one consumer to another without making someone better off, without making someone worse off. We did use the PPF as an illustration of that. What was Pareto efficiency? No, I'm going to skip past that. Right, a real world question. This is part of the idea of what it is that we're trying to achieve. Right? So when are markets unable to satisfy, that's probably the bad English, when markets are unable to satisfy important economic objectives, well, maybe that's right, maybe it just needs a question mark there. When are markets unable to satisfy important economic objectives? And does government intervention help? Right, so our important economic objectives may not be being met by the market, and we're specifically thinking in this case about efficiency and the different types of efficiency. So if that's the case, then what do we do? Right? If the market is failing, do we need the government? And if we need the government, is the government's help going to actually improve the situation or potentially make it worse? And that's something to consider. Market failure, here it is. Here's some definition. It's definition time. I don't know that that's worth a dong-dong or not, but anyway. Market failure occurs any time that a free market is operating without government intervention and it doesn't deliver an efficient allocation of resources. So remember, our market model is supposed to, with supply equaling demand, it is supposed to deliver us an efficient allocation of resources. But if it's not, then therefore it is not allocatively efficient, and it is not therefore working as a market. There is a market failure. It also fails if the price mechanism doesn't allocate resources to a socially optimal amount. Now that's slightly different from the idea of efficient allocation. Socially optimal is exactly what it says. It is what is optimal or best for social society. So there's the word society hidden in there. Right? So what is best for society? Now there's going to be some value judgments in there. You can see that already. So some members of society think one way and other members are going to think another. All right? So therefore that is also going to be what causes market failure. And close gaps. Where you go. What causes market failure? All right, how are we getting on? Come on. Where you go? One in. Here we go. More coming in now. Good work, Arena. Well done. Oh, fantastic. Well done. Come on, Joel and Joel. Ah, there we go. When how? Nothing from Fatima yet. Jan. Okay. Oh, good. Just in time. Market failure occurs when free markets are operating without government intervention. They may fail to deliver an efficient allocation of resources. When the price mechanism fails to allocate resources towards the socially optimal amount, i.e. there is a suboptimal resource allocation. One speaks of market failure. There is a non-Pareto outcome. So, if our model fails on so many levels, right, because any time the allocation of resources is not optimal, is not socially desirable, then our market model has failed. So therefore it is going to fail a lot. All right, let's have a think. Let's have a look here. These are just some examples. All right, so we're going to be discussing these, don't panic. All right, if there are negative externalities or positive externalities, all right, don't need to worry about what they are at the moment. That will be coming soon. Anytime those occur, the market has failed. If there are public goods, the market has failed. If there is merit goods, the market's chances are is going to fail. Demerit goods, well, we know because they're demerit goods, we're going to look into this, that the market has failed in regard to them. Information failures. We talked a wee while ago about imperfect information and how that was affecting us as consumers. So the market fails with regards to that. When there is market power, in this case monopolies, right, that's a failure of the market. When we consider the idea that factors of production are not able to move around, they're immobile, unable to move, that again is going to become an example of a market failure. So what we're in essence saying is that idea of allocative efficiency, productive efficiency, Pareto efficiency, all of that potentially doesn't happen, right? Because all of this does. So therefore, what do? Do we throw the market model out and move to a command-based economy? Yeah? Or are there more failures with the government than there are with the market? In which case, do we need some sort of weird combination, some sort of hybrid model that is a market and government sort of model? All right, details. Let's have a look. 4 key things to think about. Public goods, externalities, a lack of property rights, and asymmetric information. You don't need to worry too much more about that at this point, but those are 4 keys to market failure. Right, what are we going to look at? We're going to look at externalities, we're going to look at the environment and sustainable development. Now, sustainability is one of your major themes as well, right? And on top of that, you've got economic development as a topic that you will cover in year 13, along with economic growth, which you will start looking at some point this year, and it will bleed over into your year 13 year. Public goods, merit goods, we're going to look at demerit goods, we're going to look at market power, and particularly how it is used and whether it is abused. We're going to look at other types of failures, things like information failures, the failure of property rights, and government and its interventions that we've already seen, interventions like maximums and minimum prices, but others as well, and see that they possibly too might fail. Right? And then we're going to move to part 2, which is even more exciting. So, conceptually, what do we need to know? The market mechanism may result in socially undesirable outcomes. They are ones that are not achieving efficiency, environmental sustainability, and or equity. The market failure, right, does result in allocative inefficiency and welfare loss. Okay? We need to think about resource use. We need to think about overuse of resources. We need to think about how that impacts on the environment, so therefore sustainability. Inequity, right, which is going to lead to inequality. Right? And then we're going to be looking at the government, the tools that they have that they can affect market outcomes, and whether that intervention is effective, right, in varying degrees in different markets. Now, you will have noticed I've highlighted efficiency, sustainability, equity. Those are major themes, and I've also highlighted intervention, right, which is another major theme. Now, one of the key things that I mentioned to parents when we had the parent-teacher learner conference is that this topic, this enormous topic of market failure, is also going to be linked to your first commentary that you need to do for your IA. Now, I'm going to have to go and see him because he's starting to annoy me. Right, give me a second. Right. So these are major themes: efficiency, sustainability, equity, and intervention. They're all interwoven within this entire topic. One of the things that you're going to be doing is linking all of this to your IA and to your first commentary. So as we go through, when we're looking at case studies, pay attention to the case studies, but think to yourself, is this a case study I might end up using? Is this a case study that interests me, that I might end up using as part of my IA? And you'll see why when we discuss the IAs. Right, so first step, let's start slow before we start really running with this. So we're going to take it a step at a time. You will remember demerit goods, right? Not the Jamaican merit goods. All right.
What was that?
Not the Jamaican merit goods, the demerit goods. They're the ones that the government says are undesirable for society. They're the ones that the government says are bad for you. Remember, the word merit means good. So these are demerit, which means they're taking away the good. They're bad for you. Right? Now, things that the examiner wishes you to think about. There is elements of paternalism here. That's about paternal, that's parents. So it is the government taking that parent role and saying this product is bad for you, therefore don't use it. All right? That's about the parent role. Right? So the government taking that. There is also a whole range of value judgments included within those decisions. So when we talked about subjective and objective decisions that get made in economics, the positive and normative economics, there is the connection here as well. Also, because we're talking about a lot of this, you're going to see that behavioural economics coming in here because the government is telling you this is not good and therefore potentially might use some behavioural economics tools in order to try to encourage you to not purchase this particular good. Right? Now, it might be that you're buying the product because of imperfect information, and the government might think that, so they might simply just tell you why the good is bad for you. Right? And you see that a lot. They see a lot of information campaigns, or you see a lot of information campaigns explaining to you why a product is bad for you. Okay? In the old days, you used to call them public service announcements, or PSAs. But you see it now, and they'll have like warning labels on things, and the visual imagery, which we then again link to behavioural economics. Consumption, so the actual consumption of these demerit goods is going to lead to what we call negative externalities. More on that to follow. Right? And that's going to lead to what we call less social welfare. And again, more of that on that to follow. Right? You remember we talked about consumer surplus and producer surplus. Well, it's going to have an impact there. We also talked about elasticity. Well, there's going to be impacts in there as well. All right. Moving on, demerit goods. Next activity thinks of how they could possibly be there. We're unaware of them. There could be imperfect. There could be information failures. So even though the demerit good in and of itself is a market failure, the cause of it could be a market failure as well. All right. Consumers tend to underestimate long-run costs to themselves of consuming demerit goods. And you make that sort of an argument, you can talk about the overuse of, the soft drinks, right, and what the long-run effects of those are. Maybe you're just unaware, so therefore, behaviourally, right, maybe we need to just educate, right? Maybe education works, but maybe it doesn't, and we're going to discuss that as well. What is a demerit good and why might it lead to market failure? Away you go. All right, what is a demerit good and why might it lead to market failure? All right, what do we got? Go on, team. What is a demerit good and why might it lead to market failure? I'll give you about 30 more seconds. Who's going to be the first to answer? Oh, there we go. First one comes in. Okay, good work, Joel. That's a good answer. The Joels have it. They're the first out the boat. Very good, Joel. That's really good. Well done. Good. Excellent. Yes, very good, Ian. Excellent. Yes, well done, Arena. Very good. Well done. One of the really good things about this sort of platform is I'm able to see the different approaches that you're all taking, and you're able to see the different approaches everybody is taking as well. So you can see that they might pick different examples or they might phrase things differently. It's always useful. Good work. That's very well explained. Good. Very good. Yes. Well done. Yeah. Very good. Andrew, Joel, Padma. Yes, well done. Yeah, good. Yes. Okay, well done. Very good. Kendrick. Yes. Right, okay. Now, let's move on. Here we go, examples of demerit goods. What do we got here? Now, these might be, you might have heard of these before, you might have already thought of them. Demerit, they're the bad goods, things that we consider, that the government consider harmful to us or to society. So, smoking, obesity, gambling, and drug addiction. Right, they are considered to be bad. Now, what other demerit goods can you think of, and why might they be considered a demerit good? So other than the ones I've already given, now you've got to think, what other ones could there be? You've got about 30 seconds and go. All right, so coming up with examples of demerit goods, other than the ones I've already given you, and then why you might think that they are a demerit good. Good, excellent. Well done, Wenhao. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Good. Notice people are, well, we talked about gambling and smoking. All right, so we're wanting to come up with other examples, different ones. Yes, good, okay. All right. All right, notice that they're coming up with different, yes, you're absolutely right, Kendrick. Well done. I'm not sure if you're asking me that particular question there, Joel, or if you know the answer already and you're just adding that as a question. Yes, okay. Well, that's an idea, other Joel, about the burning of fossil fuels to make the goods. That's an interesting idea. All right, well done. It's good to have real life examples because we need them. And it also helps with your understanding, and the case studies can be built into your answers. The case studies could be in the exam as well. So having a number of real life examples at hand is quite a useful thing to do. And also because you're going to be thinking about possible solutions, so having different examples where there might be different solutions is also a useful thing to be able to do. So here, this is if we consider smoking to be a demerit good, and if we're thinking that it's information failure is a big problem with it, is that what we're suggesting is that people don't actually understand the true risks associated with smoking. Right? Which means that maybe education campaigns are what's going to turn around people's opinions about smoking, and maybe that's the truth. Right? Should that be the appropriate intervention? Or should we just ban it? Right? Command and control. You are allowed cigarettes, you are not. So if they don't understand, then is it a market failure? Well, it's not the not understanding necessarily, although information failure is a market failure, so the effects of smoking potentially should be considered a market failure. But what about this sentence here? Should individuals be left entirely to their own devices? Remember, it's that paternalistic idea that the government is your parent, so therefore one of its responsibilities is to look after you. Right? Now, obviously, at the moment, we've got a situation where governments around the world are very concerned with health and health awareness campaigns, and they're pushing that information a lot. But if you have seen the news, you've seen America, as an example, you will see people fighting back against the public health awareness campaigns and saying that what the information the government is giving them is not true. So what do? Do we then just leave them entirely to their own devices? Well, in that situation, you really can't, because they get unwell, then obviously they're going to create a whole lot of other people getting unwell as well. So a lot of this has to do with how market failures can potentially cause other people some real issues. Now, here's some information failures. So in the market, right, where there is information that isn't available, okay, to everyday consumers. So there are risks from using tanning salons. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a tanning salon, right? You know, you go in it and you sit in the bed and the thing beams like UV rays or whatever it is at you, and then you come out with a darker complexion, right? I don't know what the risks are, but apparently there are some, and maybe we just don't know what they are. Addictions to painkillers and other drugs. There was another article about that the other day, about codeine, and how there's codeine in some cough syrups, and there's a real addiction in one part of Africa, I can't remember which one, and there's a whole lot of people who are addicted to drinking cough syrup because of the codeine in it. And if you go to America, then it's the opioid painkillers, the ones that have been overprescribed, and people didn't know perhaps at the time that that's what the problem was, and so they just prescribed them. Gaining entry to elite degree courses. This is something that's potentially you're going to be thinking about. What university to go to and what courses to get into. Right. Do you know everything there is to know about the different universities, their courses, how to get in them, what's required, all of those sorts of things, yeah? Right. The complexity of pension schemes, when you retire, when mum and dad retire. I mean, obviously here in Malaysia there's the EPF, and that might be more straightforward than some other countries, but it is quite a difficult concept to understand. Uncertain quality of second-hand products. If you've bought anything off of Shopee or any of those other sorts of markets, you'll know that there's some products that are obviously first-hand and other products that are second-hand. They've been used. Now, we don't necessarily know the quality of the goods. We buy them at face value, so maybe they aren't as good as what it appears. The nutritional content of food, right? That's a huge information failure. Cowboy builders, right? People who come to fix something in your house, right? Or to build part of your house, and maybe they don't build it quite as well as they should. You may have examples. You may know that may have happened to you. It's happened to us before. Right? We've had examples of that happen. Tourist bazaars, buying and selling, in this case antiques, they say, but those tourist bazaars, the places that you go to, like the Chinatown, for example, and buying trinkets, right? How good quality are they? What are they actually? Right? Now, this here says that the amount of data we produce every day, and this was from a couple of years ago, is around 2.5 quintillion bytes worth of data. That's information about all sorts of different things, quite clearly. Yeah? But that's far too much information to understand and to be able to process. So again, you go back to that behavioural economics idea. If we don't know, then we need to take those mental shortcuts. We need to figure out different ways in order to get the things that we want. I'm going to move on from here. No, I'm not. Right, now, here, asymmetric information. Right, information failure. Right, so it leads to two situations. The first one is called adverse selection, and the second one is called moral hazard. Adverse selection, and then moral hazard. Harley, quiet please. Quiet please. All right, so adverse selection is when the market failure, say in insurance, and the insurer in insurance, it doesn't tell you all the information about the level of risk that they are presenting. So you're applying for medical insurance, say, or life insurance, and you don't tell the company, oh, secretly I drive race cars at night. Yeah. Secretly I have this underlying illness. Whatever it is, you haven't told them, so they don't have the full information about you. And what that means is that your insurance is actually lower than it should be. All right? And that means that there is a cost that they then have to pass on to everybody else who has insurance. So their insurance premiums rise because of the information failure of the one other person, say. Then the idea of moral hazard. This is one that's a little bit more complicated. All right? So you look at it, and what's happening is that we as society are taking, so somebody takes a risky action, right? But they're not the ones who are fully paying for that particular action. Somebody else is. Society is. So therefore they're more likely to take that risky action because they know that there's a safety net potentially that society is providing in order to help them out. And the example that you have is, here's a rental car, it's got full insurance, so you're more likely to drive the car recklessly than if in your own car where you have a high, what's called copay. Moral hazard, you also see that with even something as simple as having a seatbelt in a car, having airbags in a car, side impact beams. You feel safer. Right? You also know that there's a good health system. You know that all of those other systems are there, so you are potentially more likely to be riskier when you drive, for example, because of that. So adverse selection and moral hazard, two very important results or market failures as a result of information failure. Another word for information failure, by the way, is information asymmetry. So the word asymmetry says that one half of the equation is bigger or different from the other. So one lot of information isn't getting to here. So somebody knows something that somebody else doesn't know. Information asymmetry. All right, there's that. Move on from there. How could information failure lead to a market failure? Away you go. Give you about 30 seconds. Right, how are we getting on? Market failure, what is information failure, what is it, and how does it lead to market failure? Give you about another 30 seconds. Yeah, you're on the right path. Yes, that's good, Arena. Yep, that's the right way to think about it. Good. Yep, good. Yes, Joel, well done. Well done. That's very good, Andrew. Have a look at Andrew's work. That's very good. Well done. Yeah, good. All right, well done. Now, there is a point I'm wanting to get to. This is again about the idea about how much information is out there. And this, believe it or not, this is a year old, this information. So there's more than this now. And this is every minute. All right, Snapchat users, those of you who know Snapchat. All right. Those of you who know LinkedIn. So this is every minute. Instagram, you'll know Instagram. It doesn't have TikTok because it wasn't around, I don't think, last year. Maybe it was. All right. Yep. And lastly for today, the question of obesity. Obesity. All right, here's a case study. In the UK, obesity has trebled. It has increased by 3 times since the 1980s. And well over half of all adults in the UK are either overweight or classified as obese. That's almost 24 million adults. The World Health Organization has suggested that there's about 1 billion people worldwide who are overweight, of which 300 million at least are classified as obese. In the USA, it's 1/3 of all US adults who are classified as obese. Right? And obesity rates amongst children have risen by 50% in the last decade. The US spent $75 billion on obesity-related illnesses, and that was in 2003. Right? It's linked to increased incidence of chronic disease and early death. There's diabetes, cardiovascular disease, different types of cancer, apparently, and gallbladder disease. And at the moment, the situation that we're in, obesity can be one of those factors that doesn't help you, right, in trying to recover from the COVID situation. Right? In fact, it can make it worse. And when you look at the death certificates, it can be one of the factors that doesn't help you in that regard either. All right, so if we just have a very quick real-life statistics search, so you jump into Dr. Google, see if you can find, I don't think I've spelled obesity right, it never looks right to me, but anyway, any country of your choosing to see if you can find, so you can't pick the USA or the UK, because I've used those, real-life examples, what real-life statistics can you find about obesity from any country you like, and chuck them in there. Away you go. Right, oh, got an answer already. That's a scary statistic. Oh, we've picked Malaysia. Well done. Oh, another one picked Malaysia. Here we go. American Samoa. Goodness me, that's an interesting statistic. Wow. So we've got a couple others to have a go. Well, there's Singapore. Okay. Yes, that's absolutely right. New Zealand is pretty high up there. Right, Bangladesh. China. 5 and 6%. Right. The lowest in the OECD in Korea. Okay, goodness. All right, well done. Now, it might be that these interest you. It might be that this is a topic that you are interested in, or it might have been the smoking. Right? It might be the alcohol statistics. It might be something along these sorts of lines. And we're going to discuss what the implication is for your IA and your commentary. I'll come back to the meat. There we are. At some point in the near future. Okay, so that's an introduction. I'm very dark on the screen because of the light behind me. Apologies. I'm here. If I step a bit closer forward, the camera might see me a bit better. Right, so that's an introduction to the idea of market failure, some of the causes of market failure, why market failure might be a problem. Yeah, being down here isn't going to be good. I'll need to think about that in the future. If I come down here again, I might put lights and stuff on to help with that. It's the clouds, it's the sun going behind the clouds, I think, at the moment. It's the problem. Right, so a lot of terminology to think about, some definitions to think about. Otherwise, as we'd say in the land of my birth, hey kornera, which means goodbye for now.
Bye, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.
Bye. No, you don't have one before the break. Don't worry. Don't panic. Don't panic. Thank you. See you.
Mr. David,
Yeah.
can I talk to you about my EE?
Yes.
After the meeting, finish recording.
Okay, hold on a second. I need to find the recording thing again.